Hey everybody, this video is going to focus on PC water cooling. Let's say you have a nice setup in your computer system, a nice Intel or AMD platform, and you're getting the hang of overclocking and you're wanting to get more out of your CPU. But the only problem is that air cooler inside that case isn't cutting things very well. The air cooler is getting very hot, the internal case temperature of your system is getting very hot, and your CPU temperature, of course, is getting very hot. And you want to make things more efficient, get the heat off the CPU better. And nowadays, luckily for you, things are much easier than they used to be. Nowadays, a lot of manufacturers out there, such as Antec, Corsair, and a few others, have created these closed-loop water cooling systems that you just buy from the store and install into your computer. Those are a really good option if you're looking to get started with water cooling but don't want to deal with having to build a custom loop. I personally have used the Corsair H50 before in the MidTower Deluxe cooling an AMD Phenom 2 X4965 Black Edition, the 125 watt version, and I had it successfully overclocked to 3.9 gigahertz. And I had a lot of good experiences with the cooler, but I had some bad experiences with the cooler. First off, that cooler needed to be lapped because the base of the CPU block wasn't very smooth, so thermal contact wasn't all that well, so I had to lap the CPU base, or the water block base, to make things work better. And of course, luckily for that situation, Corsair's warranty doesn't void out when you lap the coolers on the H50, and I believe the H70 and H60 too. So anyways, those are decent coolers, and I mean, they're a great option if you're looking to get into water cooling. Well, let's say that you're confident you want to actually build a water cooling loop. Is that the right option for you? Well, let me tell you my experience so far. Let's have a look here at the MidTower Deluxe. Okay, now we're looking at the Cube Computer MidTower Deluxe, which is a liquid cooled system, has a custom built loop, water cooling loop. And let me explain how I acquired all this stuff to build this loop. Like I said, originally I had a Corsair H50 system in this computer, and only 3 months later was when I switched to a custom loop. This is because I found a nice parts machine from a local computer work store, which is pretty much a computer thrift store. For $60, had a nice gigabyte full-size aluminum tower, and I had a Thermaltake Big Water 735 cooling system in it. And originally I had installed all the components from that system into this case, and for the most part things worked okay, but let me explain what else I've done to this setup. If you watch motor videos, which I do have a video of that part system I just mentioned about, but if you watch motor videos, I acquired this air conditioning evaporator from my grandpa's shed, and it had never been used. It was an old automotive AC evaporator, so it was obviously from the R12 Freon days. But of course, it was never used before, but it was just sitting out in storage. So anyways, what we done here was install some barbs, which my father did this for me. He found the barbs at Lowe's, and we installed the barbs. The bottom one did have some sort of a little bit of a leak, but I fixed that using some silicone and some hot glue. It's never leaked since. It was a very, very, very slow dripping leak. So anyways, that got fixed, and right now I'm running an 8-fan setup on this thing. Okay, so I have 4 80mm fans on this side, and on the other side I have 4 92s. A push-pull configuration. It does make a little bit of a noise, but the only fan that really makes the most noise is this one over here. That's the one that makes the most noise. I mean, originally I was kind of irritated with it, but I got used to it. It's not really that bad. I mean, think about to the old days back when we had 60mm heat sinks on our AMD T-Bird processors with 7,000 RPM fans. That was loud. Anyways, I'm using this AC evaporator as a radiator, and the rest of the components are from the Big Water 735 system. And for those who wonder about how you set these things up, how you build these loops, it's actually easier than what it looks. I mean, I originally was a bit nervous at setting up a system like this until I got to work with one hands-on. This particular cooling system has compression fittings on the CPU block, the pump, the reservoir, and the factory radiator. However, this AC evaporator only has barbs, which I have zip ties holding the tubes on like it's supposed to have. Works decent enough for what it is. Like I say, these compression fittings are easy to work with. I mean, the stock tubing, I didn't have enough to complete this whole loop, so what I did was I went down to Lowe's and got some 3/8 inch vinyl tubing for like a few bucks. And I mean, it works just fine. Another big concern about going with liquid cooling is the fact that you're running water inside your computer system. And if a leak was to occur, you're worried that your components will get fried. Well, there's a fix to that. I'm running Fluid XP Plus in this system, which is non-conductive. It does not contain ethylene glycol, so it's safe if you have animals in the house, which I do have a dog and a cat that roam around the house. So if this ever was to spring a leak and get over the floor, it would not hurt them if they were to drink it. So I mean, this coolant is a little bit more expensive than like a, let's say, a regular coolant or antifreeze from an automotive store. But this is, I mean, this is like having insurance. It's like $30 insurance for 16, or I think it was 20 something or 30 something fluid ounce. I can't remember exactly how much was in the bottle. But this particular system, water cooling system, took the whole bottle, while the stock 735 configuration only took a little bit. So anyways, I mean, like I say, these systems aren't that hard to set up, and if you're worried about a leak springing, you can always go with non-conductive coolant. Now, you're wondering about temperatures. It is like 80 degrees in this room right now because, I mean, the AC's not on and I haven't opened the windows yet. It's nice and cool outside, which normally I put the window fan in right now, but I'm taking video, so I'm trying to keep things nice and quiet. Anyways, let's look at hardware monitor. The idle temps are a bit on the warm side, like 43 degrees C, which I'll explain why these temps are a little warmer than what you would expect with a liquid cooling system. But with this Phenom 2 X4965 at 3.8 GHz, we're looking at a max load temp of 51 degrees C. And keep in mind, with an air core, with the ambient temperature in this room, those temperatures will be 10 to 15 degrees C higher. With the Sunbeam Silent Whisper heat pipe cooler that I had, even with a 5,000 RPM 8mm fan on it, and after lapping the cooler and everything, I still had hot load temps of 60 to 62 degrees C, the hottest we should have ever had the CPU. So even with this particular setup, and as hot as it is right now in here, we're seeing decent results for what it is. Let's have a look here again. Let me explain why those temps are a little bit high. The stock CPU water block that comes with the 735 is not very efficient, I would say. It's not a very good design. Modern water blocks nowadays have small pins or fins inside of them, copper fins or pins inside of them. This water block, more or less, the water comes in and goes back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, and out, which, I mean, doesn't really pick up the heat that well. So one of these days I am planning on buying a Heatcure 3.0 CPU block for this thing. I'm not sure when that'll be because I'm planning on upgrading the graphics card and maybe the hard drives first. Definitely plan on upgrading the graphics card from a 3450 to a 6770. That's definitely one thing that needs to be done to this computer. And then, if my hard drives aren't full, I'll then focus on the CPU block. getting that replaced with something better. Then I might be able to get this CPU up to 4 gigahertz. We'll see. But like I was saying, if you're looking into going into water cooling, if you don't want to have to set up a custom loop in your system, definitely go with some of the offerings from Corsair and Tech. For example, the Corsair H50 is a fairly decent one, but I recommend that you get the H60 or H70. They're much better coolers, in my opinion. I think the H70 would definitely be good with a high-end CPU. But if you're willing to set up a custom loop, go for it. Anyways, any questions or comments? Let me know.